And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
What up, brother? We're live.
Good morning. Live 8:05 Eastern time. Of course, for me, it's still dark outside. 5:05 in the morning on the West Coast. You know, maybe some of our listeners are friends of the podcast. If you ever come to the West Coast, hit me up, visit. We could do some coffee out here or something. Listen, you know, some interesting stuff. Got a great title here. Congresswoman accused NYPD of stonewalling request for the New York City migrant crime numbers. But before we get into that, John, I just want to read this to you real quick. I read it to you before, but I want our listeners and friends to hear this. And I want them to it's just amazing what goes on with NYPD leadership, nepotism. And John, I read this to John because exactly what I was thinking. He said it immediately offline. So I wonder if my listeners and friends of the podcast are thinking the same thing. So here's an article about Michael Kemper. Sure enough, it's confirmed that Michael Kemper will be the head of security initiatives for the MTA. But in this article, there's a quote, and it's some type of MTA release by MTA chair and CEO Jano Lieber. You ready for this? Michael Kemper has been the architect of the NYPD's hugely successful strategy for reducing crime in the transit system. I'm trying to say this with a straight face. Said MTA chair and CEO Jano Lieber. It has made transit much safer in all, keyword, all of the major crime categories, and I look forward to a continuation of progress with him leading MTA security initiatives in collaboration with the NYPD. John.
Listen, you know, we're still playing the perception game. So, I mean, crime has rose significantly in transit. I think this year, though, it is down. And I think it was slightly down as we closed out last year. But I don't think those numbers held after the audits were done. And I don't think they would held if actually there were true audits or crimes were being taken on New York City subways. But I'll tell you one thing I know. You know, a lot of people that take the subway or took the subway every day that don't take the subway anymore. I know a lot of people that take the subway every day that are furious because they have no other choice but to take the subway, and they say it's an absolute disaster and reminiscent of the 70s and 80s. So, I mean, I'm not sitting here hating on Michael Kemper. I don't blame him for the rise in crime. I don't blame anyone in the NYPD for the rise in crime, but the gaslighting continues. MTA is a failed agency, obviously, so I don't blame them for doubling down on failure. This is just the state of New York City. These are all the backdoor deals, and this is what we say. Toe the company line. Say what the city wants to say, what the politicians of New York and New York State and New York City want you to say. Crime is down, crime is down, crime is down. Oh, if we just remove these years and then, you know, you take out the month of December and then, you know, you take out the month of June and July also, then we'd be at historic lows. You know, it'd be the lowest time in history. You know, if you do all those things, you'll be greatly rewarded. But again, like I said yesterday, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose your soul? I wouldn't trade places. Keep all the money.
You gotta love the gaslighting. It's almost like you know, guys that work out and you know they look good with their shirt on, and they're like, you know, they take their shirt off and then they're not shredded, they're not eating well. You know, if I ate well and I had abs, I would look much better. You know, if I had this, I would look much better. Well, yeah, well, that's like a lot of things, you know. And
if I didn't have a job and kids, I would be ripped. Like,
yeah, exactly. If I had a good job, I could buy a good house. You know, Chris Arnold says gaslighting for congestion pricing, all about that. And Paul's New York City beat 5896 said a homicide last night in transit Rockaway Avenue train station. I didn't say anything about that, but look, just clearly shows. I mean, we're talking about how historically low the crime rates are in transit in correlation to Michael Kemper. Now, I'm not hating on Michael Kemper either. Listen, I get it. He has to do his job in this administration. But at the same token, he never stood up and said, let's actually give the actual numbers, which is why I say, if anything, he would be a fantastic used car salesman, because he'll tell you, listen, here's a car with no wheels on it, but this car is fast. That's a great car, and you'll believe it. But the fact that to say in this, not only say, okay, he's got experience with the police department, but to say that he manufactured an amazing plan. What plan? You and I heard, John, we both heard Michael Kemper say, I think it was about a year ago, that their plan was based on what Mayor Eric Adams was, just to flood the transit system with 1,000 more officers. Is that a plan?
No, I mean it's a temporary plan. It's good for a detail. It's not a long-term plan. It's not a long-term crime fighting strategy. It's not something that's going to work. It's all right. Let's make it look good for a few weeks. Let's keep the crime numbers down for a few weeks. That's all that is.
Well, and in fact, I think it was zero plan, and manipulate the statistics. And even further, this is the part that I really had a problem with Michael Kemper, is that he actually put the blame of the rise in index assaults on the cops. The fact that the cops were getting assaulted, that this new phenomenon of the cops getting attacked, was a major contributing factor to the rise of crime. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, that was totally disgusting. What Eric's talking about is Kemper had repeatedly, it wasn't just him, actually. I think it was Madry, I think it was LePetri, it was Shell, it was Kaz. They all kept repeating this line for about a month. That, if you just take away the assaults against cops, then assaults in transit really aren't up. It's just because the cops are doing action. So, of course they're going to get assaulted. So it's like, what? Like, why? Who's doing your PR campaign? Like, who's telling you this sounds good? It's like, are you serious? Like, that does not sound good. That sounds terrible. It's like, oh, don't worry about it. It's just the cops that are getting assaulted. It's not a big deal.
I can tell you who's doing the PR campaign. It's the Gotham Brothers. The Gotham Brothers on here.
It's honestly, it's sad, dude. And then Eddie reached out last night. He said that his son is attending Baruch. It's his freshman year, and he hates college, right? Because of all the nonsense on the campus. And it's starting up. It started in Columbia again last night too. And Columbia again last night, I saw a tweet from a student, another one, first-year student, and she said, I can't imagine that this is going to be my first year of college. I can't see how this is going to last. This is, she's going to college and everybody's protesting on the campus. So, I mean, the New York City's in shambles. The perception, they're trying to get that mute button up quick. They're trying to be able to control information quick. Get people like myself and Eric out of there, shut down social media because they need a mute button, because it's the only thing to keep their perception up at this point. And like I keep saying, they'll bring you the perception will bring you the reality. Yeah. So, I guess, congratulations, Mike. 500. What do you think that job is about? $500K a year? I would say something like that.
Easy. I would say it's probably around the same amount that John Shell is going to make if he actually gets this job with Newsmax or Fox. The rumor is that he's going to get it through some media outlet. I think it's probably would be about the same. Probably $750,000 to $1 million. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we heard that he's getting head of security, and he'll do some like expert opinion panel as well. He'll be on and he'll talk about it. I can't wait to see it, man, because I want to see it. Does he start to tell the truth, or does he continue to hold the water for Eric Adams? I'm going to say he's a company man. He's going to hold the water, because I think once you pass a certain point of lying, you just can't go backwards. And I think that we've seen that with Eric Adams. And I think John Shell, I think they're all gone. They're lost. They can't even tell you the truth if it's in their face. If you take them to a farm, but Eric Adams is like, that's not a farm, they'll be like, that's not a farm. No, those cows. No, it's temporary shelter. Paul sounds like Russian disinformation. I don't know. Homicide last night in transit. Can't be. Crime's down. It's impossible. Crime's down in the cities. This is the lowest crime rate near historic lows. So I doubt it. I doubt this. This has got to be Russian disinformation coming in.
It's funny that John Shell and Kaz Daughtry, the Gotham Brothers, they talk about having a mute button because they want to control the narrative. But if anything, these two clowns, they need a muzzle. They need a muzzle because, honestly, for John Shell particularly, if he's going to get a job, such a lucrative job with one of these news outlets doing security, what is their social media policy? Because if he goes out on these rants on social media, I would assume that they have some type of social media policy. He won't last there too long. Only in the New York City Police Department under Mayor Eric Adams could he actually get away with the rants that he goes on, these drunken stupors all over social media. It's funny, John, because we put out a meme yesterday, and I say it again. These memes make themselves. Sure enough, John Shell getting ready at 10 p.m. His phone is getting ready. He's all over social media. He just can't help himself.
So he actually puts this out. He puts the ComStat numbers out. This was actually not a 10 p.m. tweet, so I was shocked. This was actually, it was. I guess he was annoyed about the Michael Kemper meme with Mike cherry picking the numbers that we were just doing that joking around. Like we put that back out. But you did hear Michael Kemper was retiring first. Remember where you heard it first. And we said he was going to the MTA. New York's Finest Unfiltered podcast. You heard that over 6 days ago, I believe. So John Shell puts this out, and he puts, yes, overall major crime in New York City is down for 2024, along with shooting violence. August 2024 was the safest month for shooting violence in 30 plus years. Those are the facts. Take a look. I know the facts are hard for some people, but it is what it is. Safest big city in America. Facts, no cherry picking. I'm telling you, I love John Shell. I love Eric Adams. This administration is it's pure comedy. So our good friend Sam Antar, he actually, this is where you're going to see, he's going to be touted as spreading Russian disinformation when he's giving you the actual facts from the NYPD's own numbers. So this is New York City's violent major felony offenses. This is murder, rape, robbery, and felony assault. Okay. So it's that. All right. So here's Sam Antar. And here you go. Dear NYPD Chief of Patrol John Shell, either you are a shitty liar or you do not know math. If current trends continue, the violent crime in New York City for 2024 is expected to surpass the levels of any year since 2003, reversing 3 decades of crime reduction progress. Try swallowing that. And if you take a look at the yellow and you see the spike, obviously it was on the rise towards the end of the de Blasio administration when we decided, let's just let everybody wear masks and let's stop holding people accountable and let's open up all the jails. Obviously that rise was happening under the commie Bill de Blasio. But Eric Adams could have put a major stop to that. He could have put a stop to the amount of people we were losing in New York City, the amount of residents we were losing in New York City. He could have put a stop to making this the number one place for illegal aliens to go to. And he did it. He doubled down on all of Bill de Blasio's failure. So if you see the yellow, you see a huge spike. And not only does it peak off under Eric Adams, it looks like it just continues slow, steady progress, and it spikes again. So this is Eric Adams' tenure as mayor, complete, utter failure. You see the huge dip throughout the years. This was about all the time that and this is perfect because it's right as me and Eric were working, crime's going down, it's going down. It starts to peak a little in 2010. We bring it back down. We bring it all the way down. And then the progressives kick in.
There's just pure beauty in these charts, pure beauty in these posts that are done by Sam Antar, because he just ping-pongs the actual NYPD data right back to them and just purely shows the lies, the gaslighting that's done by this administration. And we know exactly that. He's both. His math is completely off, and he's a shitty liar. Just the fact that gaslighting the public to give the perception that crime historically in 30 years has met an extreme low, while Sam Antar is just ping-pong it right back to you. I mean, we just see this administration just try to take every opportunity to build their image even further than they already have this fake perception of what their image is, to believe that they're the best, they're the dream team, they're the Gotham Brothers. Excuse me. It's absolutely, it's so ridiculous that they've actually continued to propel themselves. Look, Michael Kemper has found himself a home, making a substantial amount of money. It appears it may be the same way for John Shell. Why continue this charade even further? And you know why they continue this charade even further? Because you said it, John. We said offline. We say it all. It's because it's self-serving, and they're paving the way for themselves and their offspring. I'm sure John Shell has family members that need favors, and same thing for Michael Kemper. That's ultimately what this is about.
It's really funny, dude. It's really funny. So yeah, for those of you that aren't following Sam Antar, definitely follow Sam Antar. He's now starting to get trolled as well. He's been lumped in with the trolls with myself, Eric, and Sal. Where they're coming, we're idiots, we're this, we're that. You know, the thing about Sam that's significantly different than us, he did work with federal law enforcement after he became a convicted felon for defrauding the federal government for years during Crazy Eddie. But Sam is a Democrat. Sam doesn't like Donald Trump. Sam is a convicted felon. He wasn't a cop. He's just a guy that lives in New York City that's sick of the nonsense, and he sees right through the fraud. This is what he did. Not only was he a fraudster, he has the ability to point out and say, look, there's a fraud. There it is. So, I mean, you know, he's just calling out the nonsense, but just like anyone else that has an opinion, just like when we saw they went after Mike Cologne of, I forget the name of his podcast, but I think it's like Cologne's Corner. He has a blog and
New Haven.
Mic'd Up in New Haven. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Thank you. So Mike's podcast, they went after Mike for writing an article that he thought that their social media antics were unprofessional. They tried to lump Mike in too with us and like, oh yeah, I know who put you up to this. Shell did this like crazy message to him on LinkedIn, basically saying that me and Eric put him up to it when it couldn't be further from the truth. But yeah, definitely check out Sam. He's an interesting guy. We had him on the show. Check out that interview. And yeah, nobody's putting Sam up to this. He's just looking at what they're saying. He's watching what they're saying. He's looking at the numbers, and he has the ability to sit there and say, you know what? I'm retired now. I'm in retirement. I want to know why the city around me is falling apart and why we're returning to levels we haven't. And again, he's not a conservative. He's probably fiscally conservative. He's probably a moderate Democrat, but he's definitely a Democrat, and he's definitely not a big Trump supporter either. So I don't think he's a Harris supporter either. And he's not a sycophant for Eric Adams either. He's just calling it like he sees it.
I think that's a great point that you just put out there, John, that he's not necessarily a fan of our ideals either, but how we came together through social media is because we both agree that the gaslighting, the lies by this administration is just insulting to New Yorkers. It's insulting to anyone in retirement right now. It's insulting to anyone that lives in New York City, actually cares about New York City. And that's why Sam Antar has the ability to actually understand numbers in a way that most people don't. He's a master of his craft, and he takes ownership for his crimes. He doesn't shy away. He says, I'm a convicted felon. And he says, I paid my debts. So that's what's quite interesting. He had put something out on social media prior in a conversation, some type of pissing match, of course, that John Shell wants to go off on. He said, I paid my debt society. What about you? So that's quite interesting. He takes ownership of who he is and the crimes, and he's actually explained that the crimes that he's committed has actually helped the federal government. He's actually helped federal law enforcement. So very interesting guy, very intelligent, doesn't shy away from who he is. We're not putting him up to it. So that's something you have to ask yourself, John Shell and Kaz Daughtry. Here's somebody, we didn't put them up to this. They did it on their own. So do you think Sam Antar is just a solo renegade? There's many people just like him that feel the same way about what's going on in New York City. They just don't have the fortitude and the intelligence when it comes to math in the manner that he does, and the understanding of the manipulation.
He's retired all the time.
But that too. He's got time on his hands. That's a great point also. He does have the time on his hands, and he takes a passion in actually understanding numbers. That is his forte. So hats off to Sam Antar, man, because he uses factual data. But apparently, according to John Shell, I don't know if facts even matter anymore.
Do facts matter? Well, they need a mute button. You know, the Gotham Brothers are gonna have their own podcast. The rumor is, I think, I forget who keeps putting it out, that they're gonna be on the Synthetic News Network, SNN. And you know, of course, there's gonna be a mute button there, but there, you know, you're gonna be able to listen to them preach to you. So let's get into this article a little bit. So Nicole Malliotakis, former classmate of mine, former Newdorp Central. I think they're something else now. I think they're the Newdorp. I forget what they are. So Newdorp graduated same year as me. So Congresswoman out of Staten Island. She was a state assemblywoman out of Staten Island. She did run for mayor against Bill de Blasio. To be fully transparent, I supported her in every one of her runs except for the last Republican primary, when I watched her turn into a rhino as she denied President Trump, not once, but twice. She took the Trump endorsement. She then denied him. She took the Trump endorsement again. She then denied him again. She was largely silent through 2020. She was silent about myself and thousands of others losing our career. She continues to remain silent about that. However, I would still support her over any lefty that you could put there. And that's, you know, I have to say that, but if I'm not going to get in the game and run, and nobody else is going to get in the game and run, and she's going to be the Republican nominee, then she's going to get my support. But she is now, instead of bootlicking for Eric Adams and the Democrats, she's saying that the NYPD and Eric Adams are stonewalling her request for New York City crime numbers. What do you think about that, Eric?
So, I mean, it's interesting in this article that she put out a FOIA request, and of course, her FOIA request just was unheard and actually unanswered. I mean, we're not surprised about it, especially during this administration. We've heard numerous requests for FOIA that have been unmet, and they're not being done in a timely manner. And this is the least transparent administration. This is just another indication of how this administration does not care about accountability and transparency. So what she's asking for, she's asking for a 5-block radius of a migrant shelter to actually get some type of information or data to show the correlation between the illegal aliens in that vicinity and the crimes committed from those illegal aliens. So the argument would be there, of course, this is a sanctuary city, and we're not asking immigration status to actually have an accurate database. However, I've said this on prior podcasts, and I'll say this again. We do have the data. And the data is this. It's the pedigree cards when the illegal aliens are arrested. And if you look at the address of these perpetrators is going to be Roosevelt Hotel, Randall's Island, or undomiciled. So it's not particularly impossible to get this data. And with the data, we have it as we speak.
So what's funny is, you know, this is a 30-minute request. This is not a big deal. You know, you could give the Congresswoman right off the bat. If she was a Democrat, they would give her this information and more right away. So, but in a half hour, you could just go and put all the arrestees' addresses who gave city-run migrant shelters. That would take about a half hour. You don't have to print out all the 61s. You could just give her the list. So this request would take about a half hour to fulfill. You could say we could give you the rest within a 5-block radius if you give us time, you know, because obviously within a 5-block radius, or just deny and say we don't have the resources to determine what 5-block radiuses are around there, and we're not going to spend hours upon hours putting this request together. But here's all the people that were arrested that listed their address as a migrant shelter, and here are all the crimes committed within a migrant shelter. This would take a half hour. This doesn't take long. You give it a long list. It'll have the top charges. It'll have everything on it. It'll just be a list, like a list form. Boom. Take a half hour to print out. So instead, what the NYPD has said to her, and this is where it gets wild, right? Malliotakis said the NYPD periodically sent her responses saying the information was not yet available, and it wouldn't be until November 15th. 10 days after the election in which the U.S. border and the migrant crisis has emerged as a top voter concern. I believe this administration is stonewalling. The public has the right to know, the Congresswoman said. Either they're stonewalling or there are many more crimes being committed by migrants than they can tabulate in a year. And that's ridiculous. I'm going to tell you right now, Nicole, this is, because I don't think you guys have heard it. I don't think you guys in the Staten Island GOP have heard this enough. I don't think those of you in the back that are listening, I don't think you've heard enough. This is the least transparent administration in my lifetime. Transparency is not a friend to this administration. It's not a friend to the Democrats. And they are doing everything under the sun, including bullying tactics and trying to shut down and improperly using police resources to stop any dissenting voices. So this is 100% being stonewalled. This is not a hard request. If I was still there, I could fulfill your request in a half an hour.
You know what's funny about this administration, especially John Shell and Kaz Daughtry. So the same piss and match that they're having with Sam Antar, the information that's being ping-ponged back to them, is the same information that they're trolling right now. So Juju says Nicole doesn't care about the stats. She wants to use it for political purposes. Well, the same goes for the NYPD. Same thing goes for you, John and Kaz. You don't want this information out to the public for political purposes, for your position in leadership of the NYPD, and also under the behest of your mayor, Eric Adams. So it's the same thing. It's funny how it's good for one and not good for the other. So, John, you hit the nail on the head. Absolutely. This is basic information, and this is something that can be released in minutes. And actually, we could easily put together, that wouldn't take long also, to get the arrest in a 5-block radius. We have that information at our disposal. That's something that's quite easy also. So the fact that they're not putting this information is twofold. They're stonewalling them, and of course, it's because they're also hiding crime information also. I would love to know who's in leadership right now in quality assurance for the police department right now, who's actually keeping accurate data, because that's very questionable, and it's unfortunate right now. The police department is embedded with corruption. The fact that they're not putting this information out is corrupt in itself, because the people have a right to know what's going on. They're concerned about what's going on with illegal aliens. They're concerned about their safety. They're concerned about these particular locations. And some of these people, they know people particularly that live in these areas, and they're completely affected by it. But the police department was to hide from it and pretend it's not there because of Mayor Eric Adams. Huge problem. We're not serving the people anymore. We're serving our own needs, and we're serving our own political theater.
It's all about the gaslight, my friend. It's all about the gaslight. That's all this is, I mean, and that's what we're being led to believe. The information that you are being given by the New York City Police Department is the information that they want you to hear. Someone in the chat said that Nicole Malliotakis doesn't care about the stats. She only cares because she's going to use it for political purposes. I agree, because everything in life is political, right? The policies that created this are political. So we need to be able to tabulate and calculate the failure or the success of these political policies. And right now, what we're seeing is that Eric Adams holding on to Sanctuary City, Eric Adams cheering on an open border, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris leaving our border wide open, is something that Americans are directly against. I think we have a lot of people in the chat today talking about how racist white people are, how we can't even call people migrants. I just want to remind you all that this is America. We've all immigrated to this country. Whether you immigrated here yourself, probably you're not more than 1 or 2 generations behind coming from anywhere in the entire world, especially if anybody's in New York. I know my family, I believe I was I'm second generation. So this first generation, or you yourself are an immigrant yourself. So, I don't think that people who have immigrated to this country, who are in this country, don't have the right to talk about our laws, the laws that they themselves were held to for years and years and years, the laws that their families are still currently being held to, and the laws that are being violated by millions and being allowed to be violated and are being violated not only by the federal government, but by state and city officials. So, I don't know what the chat's about. I don't know if just trying to drift us off course or just try to continue to paint us as this podcast is a racist dog whistle because you are low resolution thinking people and are unable to have a conversation. So instead you need to slander and defame. But again, you guys are welcome to come on the show. We gave you that invite. You could come speak to the men and women who you serve underneath you, but you refuse to. Instead, you just hide behind fake handles and continue to throw out accusations that make absolutely no sense and just show everyone how dumb you are and how you should have no business public facing anywhere in the media or speaking for the men and women in the New York City Police Department. But anyway, thanks for joining us today, guys. We got about 266 people in here. If you guys could do me a favor, if you could just like this space and share it out, help us move out up in the algorithm, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's just more gaslighting. There's another great cover. There's another great article. I sent it to you. Do you have it? And the title is "Don't Be Gaslighted, New York. Migrant Crime is Real." So the bottom line is the media is up on it. The politicians are up on it. Everybody at this point is actually fed up. And again, I have to agree with you, John. We talk about this all the time. We're supposed to have a two-party dichotomy in New York City, but it's clearly seemed to become one party where the Democrats and the Republicans come in the middle. It's the same thing for the chiefs and the police department. If you say nothing, you're just as guilty as those that are out there using bully tactics on social media. And somewhere the lines get blurred and you all become one. And that's why I said if you have 20 good chiefs and 2 bad chiefs, if 20 chiefs don't speak up, you have 22 bad chiefs. So right now we're at a point where the Republicans were completely quiet about this migrant crisis. And now they want to actually get the information of the crisis that's going on in this city. And again, it's a dollar short and dollar late. At this point, we're a little late to the game. If we don't get a handle on this, this is going to be a problem, not just now, but this is going to be a problem that ferments. And this could be a problem for decades because we've brought third world ideology here. We've brought third world crime. It's really changing the face of New York City. And in these areas, right now, Malliotakis is asking for a 5-block radius. But if we don't get a finger on this, it's going to spread to the entire city. And that's a point where I don't know if we could actually get a handle on it, especially with the police department, the state that we're in the politics that we're in New York City at this time.
Yeah, there it is. Don't be gaslit, New York. Migrant crime is real. Don't be gaslighted. One grim impact of the Harris-Biden migrant crisis was invisible to New Yorkers until Tuesday's Post-exclusive blew it wide open. Asylum-seeking criminals are clogging New York City courts. Thank you for following this podcast, New York Post, and thank you guys for the follow on Twitter and X and all that stuff. We appreciate it. And insult to injury, Mayor Adams admits that criminal charges won't get you kicked out of a city shelter. Blame the president and Veep for waving in millions of illegal immigrants who can't work legally, but also blame the sanctuary city's lunacy and state perp-friendly laws. Gotham doesn't even track the citizenship status of accused criminals. So we can only rely on estimates from courthouse staff and other insiders when we report that roughly 75% of those arrested in Midtown Manhattan for crimes like assault, pickpocketing, robbery, and domestic violence are migrants, and over 60% in part of Queens. But that's indisputable that on any given day, Big Apple criminal court dockets are packed with illegal immigrants who've run afoul of the law, who are already in violation of the law, by the way. And that sanctuary laws, which stop the NYPD and courts from consulting with federal immigration law enforcement, allow legal immigrants to become repeat offenders. And the fact that Eric Adams won't just wave his pen and change it should be also noted in here. And it's not, of course, the bootlicking for Eric Adams continues. Nor that thanks to the no bail and other criminal justice reforms, these perp not only don't get deported, they're regularly back roaming free on New York City streets soon after they're arrested. Indeed, our laws encourage the crime inclined to come here. Word has gotten out that you could come to New York City to commit crime and attack police officers and be out the next day, as PBA President Patrick Hendry once told the Post. No wonder the vicious Venezuelan prison gang Tren de Aragua has moved into Gotham in force. It's a problem for communities near... what happened there? Yeah, it just popped up. All right, well, what do you think about that so far?
Well, isn't it interesting, right, that everything is... all the negative annotations in reference to New York City is referring to New York City as Gotham. And yet John Shell and Kaz Daughtry are referring to themselves as Gotham Brothers. It's just another insult to New York City residents right now in this crime wave that we have. The lies that they're giving to the public about the historic lows of crime, just more gaslighting. It's so insulting. And that's, again, I'm going to say this till the chiefs are blue in the face. Every one of you in the New York City Police Department, if you hold the rank of chief and you do not speak out about these bullying tactics, about the gaslighting, the lies to the public, you're just as guilty. And I've lost all faith and respect for leadership of the NYPD and in any facet right now for these chiefs, how they're just allowing this at this point. I mean, again, all the negative annotations refer to New York City as Gotham. And we have these two clowns running around calling themselves Gotham Brothers, just an insult. So I just want to also go into right here. Someone put a great comment. Yeah. And I think it's interesting. There's different ways to look at it. Mitchell James, thanks for listening to the podcast, being a friend to the podcast, says, if Trump doesn't win, it's over. It's interesting to say that, right? I think if you look at the entire ball of wax, the answer is yes. But we have to dig even further, because even if Trump does get elected, and it's going to help out with our borders, that's why I say this could be a problem for decades to come if we don't get a handle on this. We already have the illegals embedded in these sanctuary cities. And even if Trump is the president, will these sanctuary cities start to call for a state of emergency and kick in an executive order to actually start working with their federal partners? And we know the answer is no, because we could compare it on parallel to what happened during COVID. So we really have to start looking at how we vote. And we need the right politics at the local level. And if we don't get that, then it's over.
Yeah, so I'm going to disagree with both of you. So I don't put faith in one man. I put faith in the system that was put in place in 1776 when we separated. Unfortunately, we moved very far from that point. And the reason that we've moved very far from that point is because we are putting our faith in one man or one woman or other people to do what we should be doing, what we as Americans have not done, which me for the majority of my life has also not done, which is get out there and get involved politically. Get involved in the political game, know exactly who your elected leaders are, know the stances and the issues facing your community, your nation, all of the above, and get out there, get behind candidates you believe in, call out the candidates you don't. And, if Donald Trump doesn't get in, I don't believe it's the end of America. I believe we'll have a lot of hard times coming in front of us. But like we've seen throughout history, hard times create strong men. And strong men create good times. So, and I believe that will happen. So if it gets worse, there will be a period where it gets better. But we have to hold on to the founding of this nation. If we allow free speech to be removed because we, as people who consider ourselves men, are afraid to use our voice for whatever the myriad of reasons is. Oh, I'm worried about my job. Oh, I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that. I don't want to be outcasted. Whatever it may be. Then 100% forget Donald Trump. If you don't get on doing your responsibility, we're 100% going to lose this country, and we are 100% going to fall into communism. But if you do those things, regardless if Trump gets in or not, we the people have the ability to stop that. We have the ability to control the conversation nationally. We have the ability to make the media report factual news. We have the ability to make our local police departments tell you what the crime numbers are. We have the ability to have the politicians start to talk about the real issues and stop gaslighting. We all have that ability. But if we're just going to say, oh, I'm just going to vote in November and nothing else matters, and if Trump gets in, we're getting saved, like Eric said, you're out of your mind. Nothing's changing anyway. Because will he stop the border policy? Will he stop the illegal flow? Yeah. And now we have huge problems. We have people in all these sanctuary cities that are still being run by these leftists, that are still being run by these leftist, left-wing police managers, politically appointed police managers, and they're going to do absolutely nothing. Your city's going to fall and slide further into decline because you have all of these lefties running your city council, running your state assembly, running your state senate. They're still going to pass this insane law, and it's going to look like Donald Trump is powerless because, and ultimately, he is. Federally, as it comes to a global leader, he's not, but locally, he's powerless. It's how the Constitution's written. It's how our country was founded. So if you're not going to get in the game, the country's over. If you get in the game, the country's not over. Donald Trump in or out. Obviously, I support Donald Trump. He is the only choice for president of the United States, but I'm not putting my whole faith in him. I'm not. There's a lot more than getting Donald Trump in than that needs to be done. And even if he fails to get in, we could still fix it.
Well, we actually agree more than we disagree because I agree on the same token that I don't put all my faith into one man. You know, I say it all the time. If Trump doesn't get elected, what is the answer? Do we just say, oh, that's it? We just give up? Do we forfeit the country? And the answer is no. But unfortunately, you know, most of our trolls believe that if you support Donald Trump, that you believe he's some type of messiah. Now, let me tell you, I don't believe that Trump is some type of messiah. I don't worship him. I don't worship any man. But I think at this time, it's impeccable timing, this time in our nation, this time, 2024, the state of the country where it's at, he is the man for the job. Now, I wish that there were other people that had the same similarities that were prepared for the job so that if Trump wasn't elected, someone else could have that opportunity. But it's unfortunate we have to put all our eggs in one basket right now when it comes to Trump. But again, we saw it during COVID that we really saw how the Constitution plays out. We saw the separation from our national level to our states and our local municipalities when it came to COVID. And the same thing can happen when it comes to these illegal aliens when Trump is in office. That's why it's so important. You're right. We have to put the decision-making in the hands of the people and vote better. Now, I'd like to switch gears and go back to Dan Romania made a great comment here. This is a great comment. It really coincides what I've been saying about chiefs being silent. So Dan Romania says, I'm curious. NYPD Shamroom Society attacked you guys as racist on the behalf of Kaz and company. Where are they now? When the first high-ranking Jewish, let me find this rest of the comment here. If I can get it. When the first high-ranking Jewish chief was shown the door by Adams. That is a great comment, brother. Absolutely. So it's quite interesting.
It's not factual, though.
What's that?
That is not a factual statement, though. The NYPD Shaman Society never attacked us. It was the Shaman, the Brooklyn South Shaman that are in Borough Park that attacked this podcast.
That's a great point.
NYPD Shaman Society there.
I'm glad that you clarified that. I'm sure that they do communicate, but I'm glad that you clarified that it wasn't the actual Shaman Society for the NYPD, it was the Shaman in Brooklyn, which is quite interesting. You know, where's John Shell's roots in the police department? In Brooklyn South. So it's funny that it was the Shaman in Brooklyn South that actually attacked this podcast. So again, just pure nepotism and, you know, just a further attack on this podcast. But I like to highlight that. Dan Romania, thank you. Great friend great listener to the podcast. Really, I know I know exactly who it is. Great guy. Just want to say that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's 100%. I just don't want to blast. I'm no fan of any of the fraternals in the NYPD, but the only fraternals in the NYPD that tried to smear us and call us racist were the Noble organization and the Guardians. And I don't even want to say it was the whole organization, because I had a lot of people from the organizations reach out to me immediately while that was going on, say, what the hell was going on? And I said,
Same here. You're 100% right. You're right.
I don't even want to say it was the whole organization. It was just the president of those organizations that put those tweets out, Victoria Perry for the Noble, and whatever that other kid is, I forgot his name, whatever, the lieutenant, the kid that just became a lieutenant.
Gordon.
Yeah, Patrick Gordon for the Guardians. So it was just them. The Shamrams completely separate from the NYPD. They are the patrol. They are the patrol, like the Hasidics that patrol in Brooklyn South. It's a totally separate entity. And, you know, those attacks have ceased since we did the podcast Racist Memes, because I think it just highlighted the hypocrisy of that. Oh, our memes are racist, but the statements that they were based off by New York City mayor weren't. So you're upset about the memes making fun of the statements he made, but you're not upset about the racist statements. Got it. So yeah, those have ceased, except for, you know, we still get the constant nonsense and the constant troll.
Well, that's why I say, John, for them, it's only racist and it's only important to them on who's the narrator. If it comes to Mayor Eric Adams because it's to their financial, political benefit, it's gospel. It's fantastic. But it comes from this podcast and it exposes the truth, well, then it's a problem. And that's why I said, you just like the song from Lamar. Listen, if you stop telling lies about us, we'll stop telling the truth about you. Very simple.
Yeah. So this was pretty scary yesterday. So, you know, listen, I think that every time I go to New York, I realize how bad the infrastructure is there. Driving through the tunnel on the Brooklyn Bridge, I'm like, oh my God, how does a city that generates all of this money look the way it does? So this is the Queens Midtown Tunnel. I've driven through it hundreds of times. And water is leaking into it. Water's leaking into it. Is it because of the bad infrastructure? I'm hearing that it was a contractor drilled into it, but this is water from the East River flowing it down into the tunnel. This is scary, dude, because I'll tell you, I've been in traffic in this tunnel and the Battery Tunnel, and, you know, your mind starts to wander, right? And you're like, wow, I'm underwater right now. What happens if water starts pouring in here? And, you know, so this is like one of those nightmares or like anxiety-filled moments that I would have. And look, it's coming from everywhere. So now, you know, I don't know if Kaz sent the drones up to check the infrastructure of the tunnel, you know, because I know he did that after the earthquake. But I'm going to tell you right now, I highly recommend against that, Juju, because the reason I would recommend against you ever doing that is because you're basically claiming that the infrastructure, that the structural integrity of a bridge or a building is fine, and you're putting the legal liability on New York City, telling everyone, yeah, it's fine, when you wouldn't know that unless you had a structural engineer come out to perform numerous tests on a building, a bridge, or a tunnel. So I wouldn't say, yes, look at me, Kaz Daughtry, send out my drones. Now I have these underwater drones that are going to check the infrastructure and see the structural integrity of these bridge, or we flew through the tunnel to see if it's okay. I would highly recommend against doing that, because, you know, this is a big problem here. This tunnel might have to be shut down for a long period of time now.
Wait a minute. I'm confused, John. You're telling me that we still need the human element? We can't. Wait a minute. The drones are just not the answer to everything? We actually need people to go in there and actually repair this? I thought drones were the answer to everything. They could be a first responder. They could be the ones that go inside this tunnel and fix this thing. I'm really surprised. But what do I know? You know, I don't know factual narrative. Let me ask the Gotham Brothers. Maybe they could tell me, because I just don't get it.
Yeah. We got a lot of trolls on here today. We got one guy saying, call the West Indian Day Parade the Savage Parade. Yeah, you know, we're not going to do that. You know why? Because West Indian people aren't the ones running out and shooting each other. It's the gang members in Brooklyn. You know, I got no problem with West Indian people. I have no problem with any other culture. So sorry, Slick Rick. I think you came to the wrong podcast, or you yourself are just attempting to paint us and the rest of the people that listen to this podcast as a bunch of racists. But sorry, not going to buy that, my friend. Is it historically a violent parade? Yeah. You know why it's historically violent parade? Because of the failure of New York City and the New York City Police Department to properly address the West Indian people, tell them the issues that they're having with the parade, tell them how dangerous it is and the format the parade happens, tell them how dangerous Juve is. They fail to do that because they don't want to be labeled as racist. So they're unable to tell the truth. And then what do? It allows gang members to shoot people, go out and target each other. Innocent people die. Mass shootings occur on a parade route. And then what? It's very easy to point the finger and blame, oh, yeah, no, it's the people that are celebrating their culture that are dressed up and barely even dressed, by the way. So they're not concealing any weapons. So it's not them shooting each other. You know, it's they're being shot at while they're celebrating their parade. So honestly, I blame New York City. I blame New York City mayors, all of them. Ever since I could remember, I blame all of them. And I blame the New York City Police Department for not being able to properly contain the West Indian Day Parade and make it safe for party goers, revelers, and people who are there to enjoy the parade. I was there one year, West Indian man. He was about his 40s, very well dressed. He was there with his wife. She was beautiful. And he was there with his little daughter. And he came up to me. I was a young sergeant. He came up to me crying. And he was big. And by an FYI, he was a big dude, muscular. His wife was beautiful. His little daughter was beautiful. He literally had tears in his eyes. And he said, could you please walk me to my car? I had no idea this was like this. I just came I'm of West Indian culture, and I just came out here to celebrate. I didn't know it was like this. I'm scared. And I was like, listen, I'll follow you. I was like, but you don't want to walk with me. I said, I think it'll be more dangerous for you. I said, I'll follow you to the car. Where's your car? He told me where his car was. And I walked behind him as he walked. And I got him to his car, and he peeled out of there. So, no, I don't blame the West Indian Day people, the West Indian people. I just don't.
And it's quite interesting that Juju was unavailable yesterday and busy doing a media tour, Rosanna Scotto. And now we have a team of trolls here today saying some violent racist comments. Absolutely ridiculous. And listen, we don't condone that on this podcast. So it's absolutely ridiculous that on job time, and I'm pretty confident that most of these trolls are active in the NYPD, and they're actually on duty as we speak at one police plaza, making some of the most violent racist comments. So shame on you. But with that being said, I worked the West Indian Parade almost every year, worked in the police department of any rank, and also work in Juve. And I can tell you the West Indian Parade, they're beautiful people. I think the culture's cool. I love the outfits. The colors were amazing. The only thing I wasn't crazy about, and I said this yesterday, was the engine oil. You know, getting engine oil all over you. So I'd always make sure, especially if you're wearing a white shirt, make sure that not wearing a uniform that was important to you, because most of the times you have to toss it afterwards. But they were good people. Just as the same problem, I put this on parallel to the riots that we had in George Floyd. We had legitimate people out there that wanted to protest. Now, I get it. Majority of these people have a complete disdain for the police, but they have a right to protest. That's why I served my country. That's why I was a Marine. That's why we work in the police department. We believe in the Constitution. We believe in the right to express your freedom of speech, even if it's an opposition of my job. That's your right to speak out. But what I don't believe is in violence. And what we saw in the George Floyd protests and riots, and I worked them myself, we saw good people there that were legitimately there to protest. They were trying, but they were overshadowed by paid agitators that created an all-out riot. And that's the same thing that goes on at the West Indian Parade. The West Indian people, they're beautiful people. It's a beautiful event. The culture is amazing, but it's overshadowed by gang violence. And the reason why they used that particular parade is because the cover and concealment that it provides, so that these gangs could actually use that as an opportunity to commit crime and to get away with it. So we need a better plan. We need to stop. Every year, the NYPD just falls back on the plan prior. The best prediction of the future is a reflection of the past. We need to change gears and actually start to change the way we police it. We need to police it in the same manner that we do Times Square, the same manner that we do the St. Patrick's Day Parade. We need to apply those same metrics to this parade at the West Indian Parade as we do in other parades, and then we will start to meet success. It's not the people. The problem is the policing.
Yeah, so yesterday in the Bronx, New York City school teacher hurt when a stray bullet flies through the classroom window. I believe he was on the 6th floor getting his classroom ready for the first day of school when a shooting occurred outside and it hit him in the hand. Thankfully, he's all right. I mean, he is severely injured, but, he's expected to survive. But, according to Eric Adams, this would be the plan worked. The plan worked. It was, if you just remove that one shooting out and you remove that one bullet, I mean, it's basically a safe school day. So,
John, you just don't get it, John. There was only one shooter, just one nut. Remove that nut. I tell you, this administration is so predictable in the gaslighting and the car salesman lines that they give the public. I tell you, they'll try to sell you ice in the winter. This is a huge indication of how lawless New York City is at this point, that we just have stray bullets flying around, and that even our kids right now in school are at an extreme amount of risk, not just from an active shooter inside the school, but by unintended bullets, because that's what's going on in New York City. But this administration will gaslight you. I'm sure Juju's on right now listening, and this is probably going to strike a chord. The cops are out there getting an amazing amount of guns and illegal firearms that are off the street right now. And it's not because they're doing better police work than they did before. They're doing the police work as they should. They're doing the police work according to the crime trends that are presented to them. That's why we're retrieving more illegal firearms on the streets right now. The fact that we retrieve so many illegal firearms should be an indicator that the streets are out of control. Because every time we retrieve an illegal firearm, that's just one in the haystack. There's thousands that we did not. So it's an indication of what is going on in the city. And it's not a good thing. It just shows that crime is out of control.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's not a good indicator, right? So we can't just keep removing everything. Well, we'll just take those bullets out. We'll just take those shooters out. Just take those years out. No big deal. And that's what the perception versus reality. I mean, look at that. The guy's in the school building by himself, getting ready for the first day of school, and he gets shot in the hand. And honestly, like when New York City school buildings, like if I thought about the apocalypse and you asked me what kind of building would I want to protect my family, I would say, give me a New York City school building. I would say, give me in New York. They old. Do they have air conditioning? Is the water systems perfect? No, none of that. Is there lead everywhere and asbestos everywhere? I mean, I think the DOE buildings department's been doing a real good job at abating a lot of them. But as far as if the world went into decay, I'd want to be in a school building. I'd want a school building to be my home base. And even in there, this guy's not safe. And then you're sitting probably in a building. I mean, thankfully, most of the buildings in New York City are brick, are older. They're over 100 years old. They're very well made. But you're in a house with sheetrock and wood. I mean, shooting pops off outside your house. You're in Staten Island. You're in a newer home in Brooklyn or Queens, or these newer buildings that they're building. Bullets are going right through those buildings. Boom, 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 boom. Those are paper. Those are nothing, So, I mean, to me, that's real. It's real scary because truly, like when I think about building something, I always think about New York City construction. There are a lot of beautiful things in Florida and across the country, and the way they build things, and they look nice with the glass and all this. Yeah, it looks nice, but I don't want it. If I had to build a building that I wanted for generations, I'm building an apartment building in Brooklyn, or I'm building a New York City school. That's what I'm building. If I want something to last out the generations, I'm building a brick building, nice little rooftop. That's real construction. That's real safety to me. That's something that'll hold up throughout the years, will hold up. If somebody's shooting outside of your window, it's not coming through those walls. And unfortunately, it does go through the windows, though.
You're right about that. I mean, you ever see some of these pre-war buildings in Astoria, Queens? I mean, because I think Astoria, Queens is a great place to actually look at, right? Because in Astoria, you have you have post-war buildings and pre-war buildings. That's what they call them there. And those pre-war buildings, they're like just cement fortresses. They are, impeccable. And then you have, of course, the modernized Astoria, Queens, where everything's glass and definitely different structure. Hey, speaking of Astoria, Speaking of New York, Mighty Fuzz right now. He's a great friend to the podcast. Great friend, great guy. He's on the live right now. So check him out, Mighty Fuzz podcast. Huge supporter of the U.S. Constitution. So definitely check him out. Real New York City guy, real congenial, great guy. So let's get into our next segment. What do we got here?
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about what's been coming out from the New York City Police Department. And I think what you're going to see is just more and more gaslighting. So obviously, I think that this podcast did a great job of exposing the fact that the NYPD and New York City Mayor Adams were downplaying a mass shooting. I don't think the narrative would have came out if not for this podcast, if not for the willingness to be attacked and blamed and all of this. So, who's this reporter? Dan Rivoli from New York One. I got to be honest. I'm not a huge fan of New York One traditionally, but I've been more coming to see a lot of the things they talking about and reporting about are accurate. So Dan Rivoli actually asks a question I think that most New Yorkers are going to ask. I think a lot of cops, when I posted this, got annoyed about it. And they're like, how did the perp get away? And I think this is something that me and you went back and forth on a different show about. I do believe, and I'll say it again, I believe that the mass shooting that occurred on the parade route is a systemic failure from the rank and file all the way up through the appointed management. And I'm not saying that because I think that they had a great plan and it truly is their fault. I'm saying that because I believe that if a coach tells you you're on a basketball team and a coach tells you not to play defense and you don't play defense and you lose that game, you failed, and unfortunately, when you're working for the New York City Police Department in a politicized police department, as it is now, unfortunately, you're going to be the guy. You're the guy on the court. So it's a systemic failure. I understand how the parade route is. I understand how the parade operates. I've been there countless times, 15, 16 times. I don't even know. I've been to the parade twice, but I've been to numerous parades in the city over and over again, more than twice. And I've been to Juve 14, 15, 16 years. The entire setup is a failure. You are put out on New York City streets to fail that day. So ultimately, is it because of your planning? No, the planning is the major failure. But all in all, it's a systemic failure when a mass shooting occurs on a parade route. The density of the parade can be alleviated with proper planning, like we see during New Year's, like we see during other events. And it wasn't here. So Dan Rivoli asks a brilliant question, two brilliant questions, I think. The one is not, if for someone like me and you, we're probably not asking that question, or anybody that was on the job, we're not asking that question because we've been there. We understand how someone could not only just slip away on a regular day in New York City, but, slip away during a parade of this magnitude, So you got any thoughts before I play the video? Or you want me to play it?
Yeah, I just want to preface it with a conversation that we had. So John and I did another show. We spoke about this, and mostly we agree on all the aspects of this. Where we disagree, and so this is the part I say I don't put blame on the rank and file because I worked it every year, the parade or Juve, but especially in the parade. It's again that's why I say we have to change the manner and the way that we police it. We don't police other parades in the same manner. But when you work in the West End Day Parade, you're boxed into this pen that you're pretty much useless. You're boxed into a pen and you're there just for presence only. And they put you in a position, it's a very precarious position that you really can't do anything. And you can't make any observations either. And I've been saying they need to change the nomenclature and the movement and the manner that this parade moves. And they need blocks and segments where they have to stop it for at least 15 minutes and then allow it to go so that we get more sparsity so it's not so dense. And I will say this, unfortunately, the position that they put you in, and I've had it happen to in particularly myself, in 2007, I was working the parade, and literally someone was within about a foot or 2 feet from me, got shot as the parade was going, and it was just so dense and so loud that I could not see who the perpetrator was. So I understand working in those elements, how someone could actually get away and you not see it. And the problem I have with this administration is they led the public to believe that with their technology that we're going to see different results this year. And that's not the case. So they lied to the public, completely gaslit that. So again, I blame the leadership, and we need to change gears. I put the focus and the blame on the leadership.
100%. All right, let's see what Dan Rivoli asks. And this is rather long. I might play the whole thing. Maybe I'll stop it in the middle. It's about 7 minutes, but it's honestly, I've never seen the NYPD brass get so flustered. A lot of people are like, how do you consider they were flustered? When have you ever seen a reporter ask a question and the same question gets answered by everyone at the dais? It's never happened because they know what they've been doing. They've been lying to New York City. They downplayed a mass shooting. They feel like morons and they have to rectify it. So they're going to harp on the fact that Dan's asking a question that most New Yorkers won't know the answer to, which is how did he get away when thousands of police officers were there at that moment? And by the way, I have another video after this. Remind me to play it, where Kaz Daughtry actually admits that it was multiple shooters at a parade. So it wasn't just one shooter. It was multiple. The New York City Police Department believes it's multiple. So just keep that in mind, because that interview came out prior to this. So again, they're withholding information, because even though Kaz Daughtry admitted on Fox News that they believe it's multiple shooters, they stick with the narrative it was only one shooter here, which this occurs after that interview.
Question is, why or how did this suspect go into the wind so quickly? And my other question is, I do not want to discount the immense work you put in for the security plan. I get it. But the shooting did happen on the parade route during the day. This wasn't tucked away on a side street. How come the message is not, we owe it to Brooklynites to provide a safe parade where there is no deadly violence? We failed, we're sorry, and we're going to try better to make sure that happens next year.
Oh, I'm gonna have Chief O'Sullivan answer your first question, but we'll work backwards. Let's have Chief Madry and Chief Shell address what you said at the end.
And of course, we take responsibility for someone being hurt out there. We didn't pull the trigger, but we take responsibility because it is our job to keep New Yorkers safe. And I think that's what we've been working for many, many years. We sit in meetings with the community. We sit in meetings with elected officials and clergy. And we sit there because we're trying to devise ways to keep people safe. And that's us being accountable to the community and to the people who serve the community. So, of course, we take responsibility for it. I started off by saying this is without regard to the victims. Of course, I want, condolences to the family, and I want those who were hurt to get better. All right. We accept responsibility for anybody that gets hurt at an event like this. But I also want people to know that we put a lot of energy and a lot of effort into this. And overall, we kept New Yorkers safe. But again, one person decided that it was, that they had the right to do something like that, which they didn't. And we will bring them to justice.
Wait, before we go further, Eric, did overall they keep New Yorkers safe? Do you agree with that? Because I don't.
Are you kidding? Dude, absolutely not. The fact that someone fired into the crowd is not safe. And the fact that they're toting saying that it's ultimately success just shows they just work purely on numbers. Oh, okay, we have 8 million people, but 5 people shot. Let's do the percentage. Only point so got shot. I mean, that's ridiculous. One person getting shot is enough, but the manner in they got shot also. John Shell wanted to tell the public that this was intentional. They shot at a specific location. No, they shot into a crowd where there are living people, living, breathing people. So anybody in the New York City Police Department that says this, that doesn't care, yet they call us racist, say that we don't care about West Indians. We care about all people. And all you care is about numbers. These were living, breathing people, and one person lost their life. And you know who else could have lost their lives? New York City police officers. That's what they don't tell you. And everything here is a bullshit lie. It was not safe. It hasn't been safe in 30 years. It's never safe. And they want to try to tell the public that's safer now than it ever was. No. If this really is the dream team that they want to call themselves, then we need to change gears and change the way that we police it. It needs to happen now. Next year, if we do the same thing, we're going to get the same results. I don't care if you have 50 drones up there. You're going to get the same results. We have to change it now. You didn't do anything different. You didn't do anything better. If anything, it was worse this year than it was last year.
Yeah. Let's go further into this. But I will say one thing. I'll say that at least Marjorie, this was the first time in all of the media tour that the Gotham Brothers went out on, the first time that he even acknowledged responsibility, that the NYPD acknowledged responsibility for allowing a mass shooting to occur. So I just want to say that. Everything else is horrible, but at least he said they'll take responsibility for it. That was the first time. There was dozens of interviews that were done after that mass shooting, and they continuously touted as a success. I'll bring up Eric Adams' video back again, where it's a huge slap in the face. We'll end off the show with that. But here, let's go further. You're going to hear John Schell. I don't know if you guys were paying attention to when Marjorie was talking, but you could hear him breathing heavy. He was really uncomfortable, really upset, really angry about the questioning. So here we go.
Yeah, just quickly, when you say we failed, can you specify what that means?
Just off Franklin Avenue, perhaps the busiest part of the parade route. This wasn't on Buffalo Avenue. You get what
well,
I'm saying.
it was on Franklin Easton, where probably our largest contingent of parade goes. Plus, you know, there's 1 million people on the route. So to say we failed, I strongly disagree with you. Okay, that's number one. Number two, 1 million people at a parade. You've been to the parade before, correct? You know how busy the streets are during the parade. People are found on floats. So how does that happen? How it happened. All right. But I like to think as human beings, when we responded quickly and our cops were running towards the danger, not looking to fail, as you put it, that as human beings, we were upset what happened. As professionals, we're upset because we want our plan to be flawless. And we've set a high mark for this parade and Juve the last couple of years, a very high mark. So what can we do from that point on from the parade? Because we certainly didn't fail. We regrouped, as the chief of the department mentioned, and said, how can we on the move with this happening change? What can we do different? And what did we do different? We had a safe event the rest of the way. With our cops, we talk about gun arrests like they're just numbers and figures in a sheet. It's a very dangerous endeavor to approach people with firearms. As Chief LaPetri pointed out, the history behind those firearms, very dangerous to do, and we did it. So the one incident, we wish it didn't happen. We our hearts go out to them because we're all family, we're all fathers and moms and dads here. Our hearts go out to them. But to say we failed at one incident is just patently wrong. Okay.
Let me chime in.
Hold on one second, guys.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to touch on one thing with Dan.
So just on Shell's little speech and rant there. Could you explain how we failed? John, I'll explain a few very easy. There was a mass shooting on a parade route in front of thousands of cops. That's how you failed.
You know, I like to give this analogy, and I think should give people a better understanding. And Juju, yourself, what's it like watching yourself speak? And what's it like watching yourself lie? Is that good? Is that a good feeling? That must be a terrible feeling. John, we all love to attend events. New York City's known for Broadway shows. Madison Square Garden is the most iconic arena in the entire world. John, when you go to Madison Square Garden, I go there, and you go to watch a game, and you're there, and you're having a good time, and you're watching the game, who do you depend on to keep you safe? You depend on the security at Madison Square Garden. You depend that they have everything in place to make sure that you can have a good time and not focus on what's going on, so you can focus on the event so you can have a good time. So your safety is at the behest of Madison Square Garden. Your life is in their hands. So the same thing goes when good West Indian Day parade happens. When West Indian people are at the event and they're there to have a good time, their safety relies on the New York City Police Department. They're there watching. They rely on you. And you failed them because 5 people were shot in the crowd, and that could have been someone that you love, and someone right now that's watching saying, well, I'm just lucky it wasn't me. That could have been me. That could have been my sister. That could have been my brother. And to defend this is absolutely ridiculous. You should say it's an epic fail. We should have 0 people shot. We should have no crime happen. We're responsible for their safety when they're at this event. Would you agree with my analogy?
100%. And that's why I say it's a systemic failure, and that's why I continuously say that it's a systemic failure. Because although you put the security guards in a place where they can't stop what happened to me, they ultimately failed as well. I mean, it was it their doing? No, but it's a systemic failure. So I think overall, when you look at a mass shooting on a parade route and to tout it as successful and ask, I don't understand what you mean where we fail, you see the ego come. You see the lack of the ability to criticize, to reason, to understand where people were coming from. And John Shell goes back to the default position of the NYPD, which is, let's talk about all the good we did. Let's talk about all the gun arrests we did. No, you're hiding behind the hard work of the men and women in the rank and file in the New York City Police Department to detract from your failure to properly plan out this parade, which created a systemic failure, which led to one individual being shot, multiple shooters opening fire on a parade route, striking 5 people, shooting God only knows how many rounds, because we still don't know how many rounds it was, how many rounds were fired. And now that it's leaked, that Kaz Daughtry leaked out on Fox News that it was 2 shooters. I think I said it might have been 15 shots yesterday. Maybe it was 30. Maybe 30 shots rang out in New York City. And not only did you let one go, you didn't get the second shooter either. So systemic failure, and they're touting as a success. Let's go on. Let's continue to listen to this. This is why I titled this NYPD Brass Gets Flustered when asked a question by the reporter.
Dan's question, you asked about how did he get away. If you've been to this parade before, thousands of people on the street. The music is deafening. You can't even hear your cell phone ringing out there. All right. And the minute the gunshot started, it was complete chaos. People were running everywhere. Officers were there very fast. But now you're looking at thousands of people running in multiple directions. Some of our officers drew their guns and then they put their guns back in because they thought better of it. You have, hundreds of thousands of people running. How do you even get a clear shot? All right. Officers use a lot of discretion out there as well. They went out there, they tried to accomplish the mission. We weren't able to make a quick apprehension. But again, we have the best detectives in the world, and they're going to bring this person to justice.
Commissioner, let me jump in over here. I spoke with the officers, that were, as we would call it, first doing the scene, and immediately they told me that, hey, they didn't know. Did they have a general idea if they wanted people were pointing in a direction for them to run? They looked, then they looked back and saw the victims laying on the floor. So you know what? They made the decision to go back and help those victims out first. And then obviously while they were in the process of helping them, giving them performing life-saving measures, they were getting from witnesses descriptions of people who they think that who they thought might have committed the shooting. Secondly, if you look at that table over there, every last one of those guns were loaded. Those are I don't know how the exact count of the ammunition, but every last one of those live rounds in there is a life that was saved during that weekend, especially on a Labor Day parade.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think the question is so important. That's why we're spending so much time with it, because.
So
that's a great point. Go ahead, John.
No, so I mean, it's literally that's all they got. That's all they got. Oh, well, think of all the guns we took off the street. Think of all the bullets that could have flew that didn't because we pulled the guns off. We're not talking about that. We're talking about, the one question, I think Marjorie answers it. Listen, it's a dense parade. I'm going to say that it's a complete failure on the part of the New York City Police Department. Why are we able to control New Year's Eve, to have it to where people can't move, to where we actually control the noise levels too, right? We control the noise levels. Oh, you can't hear yourself think. Isn't that a failure on the part of the New York City Police Department? You're given the permits. Why aren't you controlling what the decibel could be at a parade? Why aren't you controlling how many speakers somebody can have on a float? Why aren't you putting these things in place to not only protect public safety, but to protect everybody? The police officers, the parade goers, the people on the route. Why aren't you putting those in place like you do during New Year's Eve? So again, I'm going to blame you for the fact that cops can't hear anything, the fact that the parade is so dense and it's not lined up. New Year's Eve has far more people showing up than the West Indian Day Parade. I think sometimes the estimates are 6 million people, I think, on New Year's. You have 1 million people on one block on New Year's. So, I mean, I think when they talk about that, why weren't you able to control it? But it's a fair question by Dan Rivoli because he's speaking for the people. He's asking a question that the average person in New York City wants to know. And I think Marjorie answers it. It's a very dense situation. It's hard to get a shooter or shooters, as Kaz Daughtry has alleged, that they believe it's multiple shooters. So he explains that. But the thing that they're so flustered about and the thing that they're trying to detract from is the second question that Dan asks, which is the most important question. It's, why aren't you saying that there's room for improvement? How are you and the mayor touting this parade as a success when there was a mass shooting where one person died? Like, that's the question that ultimately has them flustered. That's the question on why they're taking turns going around. And that's the question they continue to hide behind the hard work of the men and women in the New York City Police Department. And it's a complete, utter failure. When I look up here, I see incompetence. I see inept people. I see people that I wouldn't cross the street with. I wouldn't follow them across the street. I wouldn't walk behind a candy store with them. I don't trust them. They're incompetent. They're liars and they're phonies.
All I see here is tap dancing, and all I hear is tap dancing. Now, I'm not blaming them to say that it's not a violent parade. It is a violent parade. We're not saying the people there are violent, the people that want the festivities, the West Indian people. No. But it does provide cover and concealment for these gang rivals to have their beefs and settle it. And it's a great opportunity for anyone to settle any violence and get away with it. And I say this again, it's because the way that we police the West Indian Day Parade is far different than the way we police Times Square for New Year's Eve. It's different than how we police the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And it's even different how we police Dominican Day Parade or any parade, the Puerto Rican parade. Do we have violence at those other parades? Absolutely. We have violence at every parade. Even St. Patrick's Day Parade, we've had violence. But we do, as a whole, police it much differently. I was a historian in college. I studied history. It's so important to look at history to make changes. That's what they're supposed to do. And that's, again, what I say with the police department. We see it does, I'll get text of who's leaving the job and who's taking their role as chief, and does it even matter? Because we just see the same wheel over and over. It's like a hamster wheel, and they all do the same thing. They all do the same playbook, but yet they all tout themselves as the dream team, that they're the best leaders the NYPD has ever had, and yet they're not making any changes. That's true leadership. The best prediction of the future is a reflection of the past if you do the same thing. They're not making changes, and that's why this is an epic fail. They do the same thing that they did the year prior, and they did the same thing that they did the year prior to that, and they don't make any changes. They just added some drones. It didn't make any difference, but they didn't make actual changes of what's going on the ground. I think it's important. Some of our listeners and our friends on the podcast made some fantastic comments, and they couldn't be more true. And it comes from, first one comes from Rob Marine. Let me see if I can find it here. Imagine me giving this answer during Comstat. You're absolutely right, brother. Followed by Brian Johnson. So according to Chief Exxon, 5 people shot, 1 murdered is a success. What is his barometer for failure? Absolutely. And then Rob Marine says, if I would have remotely given this answer during ComSet, I would have been the 4x12 duty captain in Patrol Borough Bronx. It is an epic fail. To say that anyone shot, it's almost like, even Kaz Daughtry, what do you want us to do? I mean, we had a couple people shot, but, we made other people safe. We're not saying that millions of people weren't safe, but you had a shooting right on your parade route. That is your job for the day, is to make sure that parade route is safe. We've had violence in and around these parades for years, but particularly we need that parade route safe. Those people suffered. 5 people were shot. Failure, epic fail.
Yeah, so we got 397 people on this live. If you guys could do me a favor, share it out. We continuously have so little subscribership or likes as opposed to the amount of views we get and the amount of hours people stay on. For those of you guys that are on the job, like I said, yes, the NYPD scrubs our social media and scrubs this podcast consistently, transcribes the entire podcast, wastes probably millions of dollars at this point to identify who's listening to this podcast. Complete misuse of police resources. It's actually official misconduct. Hopefully at some point they will all be perp walked for it, but we don't know. It doesn't really matter. But you can make a fake name. It is your First Amendment God-given right to listen to what you want to say. Now, you don't have to join in on the chat. You don't have to like anything. But I mean, you could throw us a subscribe. You could throw us a like on the overall video. I mean, really, at this point, strength in numbers, and the viewership continues to grow every day, and we appreciate you. So we're talking about the continued further gaslight. We moved on from Nicole Malliotakis, the NYPD refusing to give a request to a congresswoman that would take them about 20 minutes to fulfill. Well, it would take me 20 minutes to fulfill. I don't know about the people that they have working there now. So they denying giving that to her, and they only want to give her the numbers for New York City migrant crime after the election, which is disgusting in itself. It's a politicized organization. So, but now we've moved on from that, and we're going to continue to go into this video where Dan Rivoli, a reporter from New York One, asked the NYPD brass, how did the perp get away? And basically, he didn't say this, but in sum and substance said, why is the messaging from the NYPD that this mass shooting that occurred on a parade route was a success instead of we'll fix it and we need to do better? So this is continuous going around the room. We're 5 minutes into multiple of the top brass continuously stay on this question, something I've never seen before. So here we go.
As I said earlier, from a child, I used to come from Harlem and go to this event. Some of them been on this police department over 30 years. And I think the thing here that we got to remember is that used to come to this parade, families would come with an expectation of violence. And it says a lot about this police department that now people come with an expectation that nothing should happen. That is a credit to the men and women of the police department and the community at large. And when you see, extended clips and guns like this taken off the streets, that's why it's not a failure. Yes. Our cops are the ones sitting with these victims and their families and talking to them about how much work they're going to put in and not getting any sleep while we're out here. His guys are out there spending the last 30-something hours straight trying to get this shooter, and we're going to get him. And as I said earlier, turn yourself in because you don't have much longer to be on the street. We're going to get you. So when you say a failure, we sit with these families and we talk to them and we let them know that we're going to bring these people to justice. But we are talking about 1 million people being out there. And even if 1% is out there, 0.5% is out there trying to commit violence, that's still a massive undertaking. And it's unlike any other event in the city. All right, I'll let Chief O'Sullivan answer you.
All right, and that's it. We don't need to hear from you, O'Sullivan. You're next up on deck. Can't wait to hear from you coming in. So what do you think about what Tariq Shepard had to say about that?
Again, he's part of the trio. There's Three Stooges. I think he's another used car salesman. That was absolutely ridiculous what he said. That, yeah, people do have an expectation of safety. They do have an expectation that nothing will happen. What is wrong with that? When I go to Madison Square Garden, if I go to a Broadway show, I have an expectation that I will be safe and nothing will happen. What is wrong with that? That's exactly what they should expect. They should expect to be safe. They should not expect that there was violence. That means that we were doing it wrong for years, and we're doing the same thing now. We haven't made any changes. Stop touting this leadership as better than other leadership because you're only doing the same thing. You haven't made any changes. This is not real leadership. And what you have done is actually blocked out the public, and you tried to control the narrative. And at this point, nothing is credible at this point because it appears a substantial amount of information has been omitted. How many shooters do we have? And out of those shooters, how many rounds were fired? How many rounds were fired from different firearms? And what else do we know about these rounds? Because the rounds that are recovered will be also indicative of what gangs they came from also. Because again, there's just so much wrong going on here. Tariq Shepard is another used car salesman. This is absolutely ridiculous. I'm nauseated from hearing from every one of them.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's, again, he's downplaying it. He said people used to go there with the expectation of violence. Tariq, people are still going there with the expectation of violence, and there was violence, and rightfully so that they have the expectation because that's what's happening. Although you are continuously downplaying it, the violence is still there, and you failed to manage it. So that's why when you point to the gun arrest as a success, it doesn't alleviate from the fact that there was a mass shooting on a parade route. It doesn't. All it does is let New Yorkers know that your integrity is not for the truth. Your integrity is lost. The New York City Police Department, like Dan Rumia had said previously on this podcast, is no longer an apolitical organization and is working in lockstep to keep Democrats elected, to keep Democrats in office. They are electioneering. What you're watching right here is illegal. It's electioneering. They're not telling the public the truth in order to skew the results of an election. They're not giving a congresswoman, a seated congresswoman, results that would take 2 seconds to pull up that, by the way, are inaccurate because it won't tell the whole picture. And they're even afraid to give that because they want to give that after the election, because they want to skew the results of the election. They don't want to give out the information that people have the right to know, the freedom of information that people have right to know. So what's happening here is electioneering. It's all lies. Eric Adams is doing a great job. Kamala Harris is doing a great job. That's what they're telling you. I got a text message yesterday from somebody who I won't reveal, and they said to me, do you think Jeffrey Madry would be a good police commissioner? And I said that I think Jeffrey Madry, as far as experience, has the most experience to be the police commissioner. But I said, as far as it relates to the scandals around him, absolutely not. I don't think he should be the police commissioner. The question was followed up with, do you think that Tariq Shepard will be the PC, or do you think it's going to be Kaz Daughtry? Eric, what do you think about that?
I think you have a soft spot for Jeffrey Madry. I know you like him, and I know he is a likable guy in many ways. I don't like him. What's that?
I don't like him.
I don't like him, and I don't respect him, honestly, because he does a great job of speaking to the public. Speaking to the media. He has experience. He does it with poise. However, he's lying out of his teeth every time. And again, he's one of the bad chiefs that I speak of because he is in close proximity to John Shell and Kaz Daughtry and allows these bullying tactics. He allows the narrative to be controlled. He's working for Mayor Eric Adams. So I don't think that despite his experience that he could be a neutral police commissioner that actually serves the public and doesn't serve the needs of Eric Adams and his own self-serving needs. I am confident, and I have vital information, so do you, credible information, that he spent a majority of the past several years studying on job time and taking advantage of the fruits of this job And there's every indication he'll probably leave this job with 3/4, a substantial amount of pay. I think he's another scammer. I've seen the way he treats some of the cops. I've seen a cop be transferred one day for asking a question. This administration does not like questions being asked. And as far as Kaz Daughtry and Tariq Shepard, I know it's been tossed up, but I believe that Kaz Daughtry is the police commissioner as we speak. Who do we not see at this dais? We don't see Ed Caban because he's the most insignificant police commissioner. He is just a puppet in the sky. I believe that Kaz Daughtry is the ultimate de facto police commissioner, and he will be the police commissioner of the New York City Police Department.
I agree with you that Kaz Daughtry is the police commissioner. Really. But as technically right now, Ed Caban is. Do you believe that he's going to be named the actual police commissioner, or could you see them putting Tariq Shepard there? I gotta say, I think Kaz Daughtry is a buffoon, and I agree with you that he's the police commissioner. He will remain the police commissioner. But are they going to officially name him the police commissioner is what I'm asking. Or are they going to name the police commissioner someone who actually at least rose to the rank of captain? He didn't have much of a police career, but whatever. I think he had, what did we put up? He had 22 arrests. And I get it. Don't matter, blah, 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 blah. I get it. But I'm sorry. 22 arrests? 22 arrests in 5 years as a cop? I don't see it.
I think Tariq Shepard is the mouthpiece for this dais. I think that Tariq Shepard is the one that does damage control. I don't think that he would actually be named the police commissioner. I do believe that it's going to be Kaz Daughtry. If not? Why then put him through all this process of grooming him, which is what they're doing at this point? And they've made it pretty obvious he's the actual police commissioner. I would be shocked if they don't name him as the police commissioner. I don't think Mayor Eric Adams cares if anybody thinks he's a buffoon, because everyone thinks Mayor Eric Adams is a buffoon also. So I would be shocked if he actually makes Tariq Shepard the actual named police commissioner. I would actually put my money right now that it will be Kaz Daughtry. If I had to put my money on it, I would bet on Kaz Daughtry.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm kind of on the fence. I think it could go either way. I really do. I'm kind of on the fence.
I mean, after this podcast, they might do something different just in opposition. Like, I'm going to get these two. We're going to make John Schell the police commissioner.
Well, John Schell, I'm pretty sure. The rumor about Michael Kemper was dead accurate. I don't see why the rumor about John Schell won't be, So let's get into one more video of the NYPD downplaying a mass shooting. I'll pull that up in 1 second. Let me just get it up on the screen. Okay, here we go. Here's another take from yesterday. This is prior to the press conference. I want you guys to pay close attention to what is being said, because I think it's going to shock you when you're going to.
But then you get high profile.
They've been saying one shooter. It's only one shooter. But you got to hear what Kaz Daughtry said. You also got to listen to what John Schell's saying. So here we go. The fake news on the fake news. There they are, the Gotham Brothers. Here it goes.
Shootings are down, but then you get high profile incidents like you had this weekend at the parade, at the West Indian Day parade. And a lot of people are going, okay, yeah, it is, but there's still big crimes happening in the city right now. Is there anything you can do to try and get that number down even more?
We are. We constantly, look at where we placing our police officers at. But let's talk about the shooting at the parade, which was when we heard that call come over the radio with the cops screaming for help, shots fired, shots fired. Think about that. The cops are screaming shots fired on the radio. What does that tell us as management? That they were right there. So how do you stop somebody from walking up to a group of people, pulling out a gun and shooting at somebody? Shooting at 5 people, we're trying to shoot one, we believe, and actually inadvertently shot additional 4 people.
You think one person was targeted and the other 4 got shot? I won't say by accident, but not the intended targets?
That's what we are leaning towards. But like I said before, the cops heard the shots. They run out there with their guns drawn. There's almost 1 million people at this parade. How do you prevent that? And the department's constantly getting criticized for that. But how do we stop somebody, a madman, a maniac, a psycho, from taking out his weapon and firing it at somebody?
So I just want to stop right there. He said, "How do we stop it?" That's the question that New York City residents have for you. That's the question that the reporter asked you. But he's kicking it back to Rosanna Scotto. Eric, is that a fair question to ask the New York City Police Department to say what could have been done different? Is that a fair question, and is this a good response?
Brother, that's why we do this podcast for our listeners, our friends in the podcast, and our haters. I just want to let you know, we do this podcast on a daily basis, and it's all shot from the hip. We don't plan what we're going to say. We just go with the current news, and we give our opinion. And we're both, that's exactly what I was thinking, John. When he was talking, I'm thinking, why are you asking him, the reporter? They're asking you. You are the de facto police commissioner. You will be named police commissioner. I mean, look, he's dressed for it right now. Clearly, he's going to be the police commissioner. Why are you asking them? They're asking you for guidance. What do you mean, what are you supposed to do? If the answer is what are we supposed to do, then why do we have the New York City Police Department actually in place to keep the residents safe at the West Indian Day Parade? If that's the case, why don't we hire a private security company to actually hold the event at the West Indian Day Parade and see if they have better results? Because clearly we're not making any changes. That's why leadership is supposed to change over. All right. Eventually people retire and we have a wheel that moves on and we pass the torch so that we get new visions, new ideology, and we change course. Because if the course before wasn't working, we change course. And again, just absolutely ridiculous that he's ping-ponging back to the reporter. You are the one is supposed to be the voice of reason and tell us what the police department is going to do. And his answer is, well, what are we supposed to do? I mean, someone's firing in the crowd. Should we say the same thing at a school? How do we keep our kids safe? Oh, if someone goes in and kills 30 kids, what are we supposed to do? I mean, what do we do? We're supposed to take charge and take ownership. That's what leaders do. And they failed, and they do not take ownership.
Absolutely. I mean, that was a disgraceful answer. What are we supposed to do about one person shooting? How are we going to prevent that? So basically what the Deputy Commissioner of Operations for the NYPD just told the public, there is no way for us to prevent a mass shooting on a parade route. That's what he just told you. And he sits there and says one person. But watch what happens later on in this conversation. It's a lie. He says they believe it's multiple shooters. So not only does Kaz Daughtry not believe that the NYPD can't stop one random madman from shooting into a crowd, it also believes it can't stop multiple shooters from shooting into a crowd. Let's go on. Here's where John Schell comes into play, the illustrious John Schell. Let's listen to what John's got to say.
That maybe the parade needs to be shut down. I mean, last year the parade was fabulous. No problems, right? Nothing like this. Five shootings. And by the way, there are reports that there were plenty of guns at the parade over the weekend.
Yeah, let's put this in context, right? Compare this to the parades, this parade 20 years ago.
I mean, we're not talking 20 years ago.
No. But
okay.
Let's put it in context. Now let's get to the parade. Are we going to shut the parade down? No, we're not going to surrender.
So what can you do differently? 5 people were shot.
Well, we could talk about maybe it'll be a tough task, but I know a question came about wanding at that parade to wand 1 million people. It's possible.
How do you wand 1 million people who have different entry points?
Well, we could talk about what we do on New Year's Eve. People at New Year's Eve come at 8 o'clock in the morning, get wanted, and they get put in their places, and they have to stay there for hours. I'm not saying we're going to do that, but how do we do things different? We'll post action this like we do every parade. But again, one incident, a tragic incident, and we're standing there at the parade saying, "Okay, this is done. What do we do next? Let's keep the rest of the parade safe the best."
Commissioner, do you know who this person is who did it?
I'm extremely confident in our detectives. We got the best detectives on the globe, and
do you have a picture?
we have Not yet. We have somebody that we are extremely interested in, and I'm
Is he
going to
known
leave it
to-
at that.
He's known to.
Oh, Roseanne, you're always pushing.
That's my job. So you know this person. Has this person been in the system before?
We don't have an identification on the individual, but we have a couple of people that we like. We think there's more than one person that was actually shooting.
So let me ask you.
You heard that, right? We think it was more than one person who was actually shooting.
What a slip of the tongue. And that's something they would have known immediately, on site of this shooting, unlike what Mayor Eric Adams actually told the public. Again, how can this administration be trusted? There's no credibility. They just blatantly lie to the public. Eric Adams blatantly lied to the public. And of course, he'll say, oh, that's not my fault. This was preliminary and this was the information provided by the police, which is why he wants useful idiots, because these useful idiots will play the game of Mayor Eric Adams and be the least transparent administration to the public. And here it's just a complete slip of the tongue. At this point, he knew he couldn't lie anymore. There is absolutely, I think this is the truth right here, that there's more than one shooter and there's many rounds. And honestly, we don't even know. I would put my money on it that there was probably other people shot that didn't report it because they probably just got some kind of ricochet or maybe hit by shrapnel. I guarantee that there were other people shot in that and it was unreported. How many actual victims do we have? And you know what's the reality, John? We have about 50 to 100 victims because there was 50 to 100 people probably shot at that were in that crowd. Not just, it was just the unlucky 5 that actually hit those bullets. Again, this administration lying. Now, John Shell is, again, what does this police department do? They always try to put blame on others. Oh, well, look what happened 20 years ago. What happened 20 years ago happened today. That's what he doesn't realize. Am I right, John? What happened 20 years ago, the violence happened on your watch also. So you have not made any changes. The gaslighting you've been selling to the public, telling them this is the dream team, and you're doing it better. And this is the safest city. Well, guess what? If it wasn't safe 20 years ago, it wasn't safe now. Arguably, it was worse because typically what we had, the violence throughout the history of the West Indian Day Parade is on the outskirts. This was on the parade route, which makes it even worse.
It's disgusting, dude. It's disgusting. Paul, I'm sorry. We got a ton of comments in here, so I'm trying to put up, as long as they're not like insane, I'm trying to put up all of the comments. But I guess, Paul, this was during the other press conference that we played. I guess Caban wasn't invited to this press conference. Where is he? I keep asking, where is the police commissioner? He's nowhere. You're 100% right. Why is Kaz Daughtry having this interview? Why is the chief of patrol, John Shell, having this interview? It's unbelievable. And honestly, I said that I want to just go back on something I said, because I said that he said there's another shooter. He didn't say that. He said he believes there are multiple shooters, which means that it could be even more than 2 shooters. So I just want to clarify what was said here. So, I mean, right here, this is a highlight and failure. And the other thing I just want to point out about all this is all of these questions, all of the last 3 podcasts that we did where we spoke about this West Indian Day Parade and all of the news that's coming out about this West Indian Day Parade, it would have already cycled out of the news cycle if they would have just said, yeah, we have to do better. It would have already said, it's them. People are outraged. From the left to the right, people are outraged that the mayor of New York City and the New York City Police Department are deeming this a success and saying, oh, it's just a mass shooting. It's only one shooter. Oh, but it's not only one shooter, because Kaz Daughtry just told you they believe it's multiple shooters. And again, the fact that they don't have this person or persons identified at this point, nor do they have a picture or a photo. Big problem. Big problem. Systemic failure all around when it comes to the investigation, when it comes to the planning, when it comes to the implementation, when it comes to the aftermath, when it comes to the PR of it. Huge, utter systemic failure.
Well, here you go, John. We talk about all the times. The memes make themselves. Here's a meme right here. Look at it. I mean, look at that face. He is a police commissioner of the New York City Police Department. Does he look confident? No, because clearly what we can see, you know what's interesting about this interview in comparison to other interviews? This interview seems to be more that it was shot from the hip and there were real questions, unlike we've seen other interviews where they were ground balls. And that's why he's like, oh, wow, Rosanna, you're really pushing here, making a joke out of it. Because, hey, don't you normally give us those easy questions? Now you gave me a tough question. He was caught with his pants down, and he couldn't even lie at this point. Absolutely. There were multiple shooters. Can you play that part again so Juju and them know that we're not lying? Here's factual information from your police commissioner. Can you play it again where he says there's multiple shooters?
Yeah, give me a second.
And I'm going to leave it at that.
He's known to.
Oh, Roseanne, you're always pushing.
That's my job. So you know this person. Has this person been in the system before?
We don't have an identification on in the individual, but we have a couple of people that we like. We think there's more than one person that was actually shooting. So
we think there was more than one person. We have a couple of people that we actually like. We think there was more than one person who was doing the shooting. And
that's it.
We don't know the amount of rounds that were fired. No reporter has asked how many rounds were fired. Nobody.
Well, that's why I asked how many, right? Because we don't even. Here's something else to look at, right? So they have tried to create this narrative through John Shell's words alone. I'll probably dispute that here, Juju. Through John Shell's words alone and also Eric Adams, that it was intentional into this specific crowd. One person shot, and it was intentional the direction. Now, I would like to know also how many rounds were recovered and how many different types of shells, because I would put my money on it. The reason why there's more than one shooter is I would put my money, because I worked on it year after year, that it was two gangs that had a beef with each other that were shooting at each other, and whoever got shot, this 60-year-old person who met their demise, unfortunate, so sad, had nothing to do with it. It was an innocent bystander. And I would put my money that there's several shooters that were shooting at each other, and I guarantee it, there were different types of rounds recovered at the scene as well. And this is what they're not telling the public.
100%. Joe Mango asked, do you think that Adams would ever have Phil Banks as the PC? I mean, I don't put anything past Eric Adams at this point. I mean, the entirety of his administration is a bunch of bubbling, low integrity, inept losers. So I don't put anything past this administration at all. But I think that Phil Banks actually has more power than the police commissioner himself. Phil Banks and Timothy Pearson have more power than the actual PC. So I think it would actually be a step down for that point and make him more public facing if he took that job. I don't think he will. I think that would be that would be another first. Would be another first. Unindicted co-conspirator assigned as the police commissioner. I'm leaning. I forget who said it here. They said that they believe that Shepard's going to be the PC, and I think honestly, I'm starting to lean that way. I definitely am, because I just think Kaz is just, he's a loose cannon. You see him constantly interrupting at press conferences. He's doing and saying a lot of dumb things, and honestly, I think that if you made him the PC, he's going to do something bad real quick. He's going to step on his own thing, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, I think he's already stepped on it several times, more than one. He does it on a constant basis. Probably does it every time he speaks to the media. He steps on his own, exactly what we're saying here. And has it made a difference? He's still in the public eye. I think that Mayor Eric Adams, he's exactly what Mayor Eric Adams needs. He's a useful idiot. He will regurgitate everything that Mayor Eric Adams wants. He will do exactly what is expected from him from Mayor Eric Adams, and he will have the entire police department following suit. And John Shell and Madry and all these guys will play the game, no problem, whatever you need. Every one of them will stand by and they won't say a word. And these bullying tactics will continue also because he will be in place. I get it. I think Tariq Shepard is a better mouthpiece. He's a better car salesman than Kaz Daughtry. but I don't think they'll put him in place as police commissioner. I think they spent all this time and money on Cass Daughtry. I do believe that he's even dressed for the part at this point, but no longer our vision of what we think of a police commissioner is no longer important. The vision of Ray Kelly and that vision's lost. Even Bratton, that iconic stoic person who's eloquent with their words. This is no longer the case. I don't think I also don't. I don't think that Mayor Eric Adams wants someone to be the police commissioner that actually could speak more eloquently than he can. I think he doesn't want someone to outshine him, right? There's an old saying, don't outshine the master, right? I don't think he wants Tariq Shepard, who would outshine him, at a speaking event. I think he wants Cass Daughtry. I think it's a perfect fit for him because ultimately I think Eric Adams is the police commissioner if we really look at things. So that's my thoughts on that.
Marisa Ellis on X, she asked, that area has a lot of gang activity, and yes, gang wars have been going on in that location for a long time. What happened to the drones and the extra police presence at that site? And don't forget, they also said that they were going to camera up the entire route as well. So, but now we have no video of anything that happened. No video of came out. There's no body camera footage that's been released. There's no, I'm waiting to see some public video because I'm sure some people grabbed it on their phone. I heard there's some videos out on Instagram. I haven't yet seen them. Just been getting swamped. I've been getting so much stuff. I just haven't had time to go through it. So I will, if we get any of those videos, we'll put them out in the coming days. But yeah, it's a fair question, Marisa, because it's honestly, we were told that this was going to be the safest day. We were told all of these things were put in place. And honestly, what we're seeing is nothing was put in place. It was all gaslighting. And again, like I said, it was a huge systemic failure from the top down all the way through until today. Even if they apprehend the guy in the next 10 minutes while we're having this podcast, it was the people, because Cass Daughtry admitted that it was multiple people that they're looking at. I'm still going to say it's a huge systemic failure. Should have never happened. The planning of this event has been horrendous for years. And considering the fact that you are 100% right, the parade happens in an area where there's a ton of gang activity and the gangs use the loud music and the density as cover to go out and commit violent acts that day. The planning, this should be considered the Super Bowl parades, not just New Year's Eve. This should be considered one of the more dangerous parades, as history dictates. It is the one that, you're going to see an extreme amount of violence. I mean, you see things at New Year's Eve too at the parade that don't get reported. I mean, how many people get pickpocketed at New Year's Eve? How many people get sexually assaulted during New Year's Eve? How many? And it's a well-controlled parade, but you have millions of people there. There are things that are going to happen. Do I think that the police can alleviate everything? I don't. I think there's going to be things that happen, even if you have the best plan put in place. You can minimize what's going to happen. You can minimize the violence by planning. But could they stop everything? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They cannot. But what they could do is tell the truth. And that's what they're ultimately failing to do. And what does it do? It turns the good people in New York City against the rank and file of the New York City Police Department, because you say, oh, they're all liars. No, the guy and the girl in the corner isn't a liar. The people up top that were politically appointed, they're lying. They're not telling you the truth. The person that's on the street, they're not allowed to talk to you. They're not allowed to talk politics with you. They're not allowed to tell you their personal opinion. So that's why you don't get it. That's why you don't get it. So, that's what it does. But listen, we got 458 people on here. We're about to wrap up. We'll give our closing thought. But, again, I think we have like 300 people here on X. And there's only 20 likes. There's like 0 reposts of it. I mean, do us a favor. Do us a solid. If you like what you hear, at least click a repost, a like, something. Throw us a little love. We're not asking for much yet. We don't ask for much. We try to read all the comments out that we can. We try to respond to all of the questions. I mean, there are a lot of questions. I'm not going to lie. I think I'm 20 minutes back on the questions. I'm catching up, but trying to get on there. Chris Arnold said the shooters ran into the grassy knoll. So it's making fun of it's just like the JFK assassination. But listen, before we come back to you, what we always talk about is that all of this is a politically created crisis. The inept leaders in the NYPD are politically appointed, so everything comes down to politics. So you have to put the right people in place. That's why we support Tom Sullivan. For those of you that are in Assembly District 23, please vote for Tom Sullivan. If you're not, you have family that work in Queens, please, we need to take back New York State Assembly and the Senate. Tom's running for Assembly District 23 in Queens. Tom Sullivan is the Republican, Conservative, and Common Sense Party candidate for New York State Assembly District 23. Tom is a financial professional who served simultaneously in the United States Army Reserve for 30 years and has now retired. His district covers Ozone Park, Lindenwold, Howard Beach, Broad Channel, and the Rockaway Peninsula.
Come November, I would empower our law enforcement agencies to go out there and do their job and not put them or their families or their pensions at risk for doing their jobs. We need drastic change in Albany so that we have a say in this matter, and they realize people of New York State will hold them accountable.
The Sullivan family has a legacy of service. Tom served for 30 years protecting and defending the rights of others. Come this November, he has earned your support. This advertisement's paid for by the Friends of Tom Sullivan. All right, baby, we're back.
Ultimately, is this: we need real change, and we need change in a big way. And what I'm going to say this, and this may be a bold statement, I would say right now in the New York City Police Department that there is absolutely zero leadership. Every one of those chiefs are like children. They're sitting there and they are all towing the same line. None of them have the guts to check each other. You know, John and I get along great doing this podcast, but we check each other on a constant basis. We say, you know what, I don't like that, or I disagree. I agree with that. We constantly check each other. Constantly say, you know what, that's a good statement you made, or that's not good. And these chiefs have extreme amount of power, responsibility. They make a substantial salary. This is a self-funded podcast where we're making barely any money right now. We do this because we care. And we have the ability and the guts to actually call each other out. And yet these chiefs make a substantial salary and they can't actually be honest with each other and call each other out. There's zero leadership. Going forward, clearly, this parade route, the people deserve to continue to have this parade. This is their culture. It's important to them. But this parade route should not be shut down, but it must be moved to another location because there is a huge dichotomy. The difference between the events at Times Square and St. Patrick's and these other events from the West Indian Day Parade is that the West Indian Day Parade, that particular area is home to these gangs. It's the bedrock. It's their home to these gangs where they settle their rivals. We need to put it at another location, just as Times Square. It's mostly tourists that come to the location. It's not people that reside there and live in that area. We need to change the comfortableness and move it to another location. But we need real leadership and to make severe changes and not piggyback and reflect on the past years. We need to make severe changes, and we need to do it now. Also, I want to say good morning to Marlon, because Marlon, since we're talking about the topic of who's police commissioner, I think he made a good comment here. Shepard gets flustered and tends to show his frustrations when asked tough questions by the media as well. That's absolutely true. And again, if we're going to have a poll, and John, maybe we will at some point, I'm going to put my money on Kaz Daughtry, the next police commissioner of the New York City Police Department. Here's Mayor Eric Adams again. Cold stoned, gaslighting the public. He is a monarch, a tyrannical leader. He does not care about the public. He cares about Eric Adams. He claims he cares about black people. And who encompasses this particular parade? Black people. And he surely just doesn't care.
So I'm gonna bet against you. I'm gonna play the devil's advocate. I'm gonna say I'm going to say Tariq Shepard's the next police commissioner. Somebody on here is saying Tanya Kinsella. All rumors are Tanya Kinsella's out. She will not be the first step in the next coming months. I believe it. I see it. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're right. We'll find out, right? So there's the wild card. Tanya will be like 0 on the roulette board. If she hits the PC, me and Eric were both wrong. Both of our predictions were wrong. 36-1. 36-1, Eric. If Tariq Shepard's the PC, I win. If Kaz Daughtry's the PC, you win. If Tanya Kinsella's the PC, we both lose. So really, the unfortunate thing that we're really talking about is, regardless of who it is, New Yorkers lose. So, I mean, that's really the whole thing, because it really doesn't matter. That it will just be more. It'll just be par for the course, and just the what's been going on will continue, and that'll be it. It'll be the same exact thing. Next week on Tuesday, we'll be back at you tomorrow, 8:05 live, but next week on Tuesday, Marlon's going to come on. New York City officials have a problem responding to FOIA request, which is what the Congresswoman put in. It's a Freedom of Information Act to request information and data from the city. So they've been complaining to reporters that they put in too many and they shouldn't. So I believe that is completely ridiculous. And there's been several requests that my friends have put in for me that we haven't got back. So I asked Marlon, who actually has been successful at receiving FOIA requests, to come on the show, and he's going to give us a little tutorial of how we could request information from not only the New York City Police Department, but from other agencies. And I think that'll be a good just how to request information. So for those of you that were complaining that, you're getting too many requests, we're going to ensure that you get a lot more, and we expect them to be fulfilled.
You going to play this video?
Yeah, you want to watch it? Let's watch it again. This is.
I don't really want to watch it, but I think.
Just to sum it up, I mean, this is, again, if he wasn't, this is the lead. If he wasn't saying this, none of these questions even come out. It comes out, how do we prevent it, as opposed to, what the hell are you talking about? This is a success, and let this drag on for days and days and have people really question what public safety is in New York City. Here's Eric Adams speaking about a mass shooting that occurred on a parade route in New York City.
This was a well-executed plan. And so some people would say, okay, well, 5 people were shot. Let's be clear. One nut shot 5 people. One, and we were just in that area. And so when you look at.
Let's just go back again. He knows here that they believe it's multiple people. He knows there that they believe it's multiple shooters. So let's talk about his well-executed plan. Here we go again.
This was a well-executed plan. And so some people would say, okay, well, 5 people were shot. Let's be clear. One nut shot 5 people. One, and we were just in that area. And so when you look at that one person who we're going to find that shot 5 people, you remove him from the equation, you got hundreds of thousands of people that were out this weekend and really heard the call of a peaceful Juve and a peaceful West Indian Day parade. So really hats off to the teams, and our hearts go out to the family members. I know one person died. We go out, our hearts goes out to the family members, because you come out to celebrate. You don't want to come out and have that violence that we've seen in the past. That parade has always attracted a small element of people that wanted to commit violence. But we showed that if we come together, we can prevent that. And hats off to all those who were involved.
You know what, John? I'm actually going to argue and say that this is the worst results that we've ever had of any parade, because, again, historically, the violence that we get is in the surrounding areas in close proximity to the West Indian Parade. Have we had people shot on the parade route? Yes. But did we have someone and multiple shooters fire into a crowd and hit 5 people? I can't think of one in the last few years. This is on the parade route where 5 people were shot, and he's blatantly lying to the public. This is the worst in history we've seen in many years. At least I can speak for in my career, and I started in January 2004 in comparison to now. Absolutely. Chris Arnold, I can't help to laugh right now, and it's unfortunate, sad what's going on, and someone actually lost their life. And, of course, Eric Adams couldn't even say the name of the person that met their demise. But, Chris Arnold, you're absolutely right. The memes make themselves, and apparently so do T-shirts. One nut. This has to be a T-shirt. I mean, it's hysterical. It really is like comic era. Let's get this straight. One nut shot at people. Like, it's almost like, why do we even care? So we had one person shoot. Really? This is what you hear from Mayor Eric Adams. This is what you get from this administration. Again, I see some people making comments here, and I'm going to continue with my position. I do think that Tariq Shepard is in the running for police commissioner, but I think it's going to be Kaz Daughtry. I think all this time they spent on grooming him, that I would be shocked if they don't make him the actual police commissioner. I really do, and I think that Tariq Shepard may outshine the master a little bit. That's why I foresee that. But with that being said, let's sum this up, John. I think that this is a great episode of valuable information, and I'm sure the haters are going to continue trying to gaslight and trying to give this perception of reality. But people are waking up to it. People see the lies, and you see it blatantly right here because we gave you evidence, factual information to show you that Mayor Eric Adams knew that there were multiple shooters. And believe me, there are.
Oh, absolutely. We got Chris Arnold says if Consilla's the PC, you guys would be internet famous. We're already internet famous. Our memes go everywhere. You know, I think that the things that come out on this podcast go everywhere. That's why we're pushing 4 more years of the Eric Adams administration, because it's a never-ending, unyielding stream of comedical content. It never stops. It keeps rolling in. Honestly, you know, Chris Arnold sent us some photos himself. I mean, they're just memes all by. You don't even have to do them. You don't have to do anything to them. You just post a photo. They instantly get angry. It's like, I didn't post it. You did. You don't have to put a comment in the mouth. You don't have to do anything. I mean, it's Eric Adams press conferences are pure comedy. I mean, listen to that. I mean, unfortunately, people are dying, and the quality of life for New Yorkers is diminishing. And, you know, we're really watching a tyrannical society perform. You put this in your body to keep your work, put this in your body to keep your healthcare, put this in your body to go eat in a restaurant. You can't talk about this. This is we can't say that. You can't have that data. You can't know anything. So that's what's happening in New York City. We'll be back at you tomorrow, 8:05 live. We appreciate it. We had almost 500 people in here. We appreciate all the love, all the support. We appreciate the haters, Juju. But I'm going to say now, I think that this podcast did one hell of a job exposing how inept, how clumsy, how egotistical, and how immature and how unskilled you actually are. And that's why I'm going to say, I think that I'm going to win this whole bet. And I think that Tariq Shepard's going to be the police commissioner.
Before we cut out, I'll tell you this. You know, Juju nailed it. You nailed it, John. I mean, Juju. And the token chimed in too. Friendly reminder, tokens get spent. You must be talking about yourself. Absolutely. Just like Michael Kemper was spent, so will you. And you may say, I'm going to win. My ankle hurts. I'm going to get $28,000 a month. And then I'm going to get another job making $700,000 a year. But no matter what, deep down inside, you're still miserable, and you still have to look in the mirror. And there's no money that can replace that. And you know what? We're in retirement, and our pensions are not nearly what yours are going to be. But I could smile, and I can look up, and I know who I am, and so does John. We know who we are, and we're truthful. The same conversations we have behind closed doors are the same conversations we have. And sometimes through these texts and conversations I have with cops and the things that I say, I'll put that information, I'll actually say it here publicly, or I'll put it on social media just to show transparency that we're the same people behind closed doors that we are. So we don't have to get worried about getting caught with our pants down. John, I think it's been another great show. Thank you so much for being live with us. We'll be back tomorrow. I know Juju is quite curious where I'm at. If you just pay close attention, Ron Lason put some great comments to figure out where I am. Just remember, for me, it's Pacific time, Juju. Take care, brother. Thank you.
One thing, Boots Malacca, Sid Rosenberg, he gets all his content from this show. This is the #1 source of information as it relates to politics, crime, and the NYPD in New York City. Sid Rosenberg, you're welcome. Curtis Sliwa, you're welcome. All of the media in New York City, you guys are welcome. This is the #1 source of media. They don't put anything out that doesn't come out from this podcast or our social media or our tweets. So all you guys that are pretending you're the #1 shows in New York, maybe you got this #1, maybe you got a lot more sponsorship than us, but that's about it. So guys, thank you. 805 Live tomorrow. We'll be back at you.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888-901 Blue. That's 888-901 Blue.